Judge Judy had heard every insult imaginable from people desperate to distract a courtroom from the truth. She had been called unfair, stubborn, intimidating, and impossible to please. But the entire courtroom seemed to stop breathing the moment Karen Mitchell leaned forward, smirked, and said, "Maybe instead of questioning me, you should mind your menopause." The words hung in the air. The bailiff instinctively shifted one step closer. A woman sitting in the gallery covered her mouth. Karen's own attorney slowly closed his eyes. No one dared to laugh. Judge Judy didn't react. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't slam her gavel. Instead, she quietly removed her glasses, folded them neatly on the bench, and looked directly at Karen with an expression so calm it made the silence feel heavier than the insult itself. Karen mistook that silence for surrender. She smiled confidently, believing she had embarrassed the judge in front of everyone. What she didn't know was that a thick financial ledger, sealed inside a plain brown evidence envelope, had already exposed every contradiction in her testimony. Judge Judy had reviewed it before Karen ever walked into the courtroom. Pay close attention to the next few minutes, because this case was never really about the $50,000. That number simply became the price of one person's arrogance. What Judge Judy was about to uncover would reveal something far more expensive than money, a calculated attempt to manipulate trust itself. Before this unforgettable courtroom story continues, make sure you're subscribed for more dramatic courtroom cases like this. If you're already part of the community, thank you. And let us know in the comments where you're watching from, because this courtroom is about to witness a lesson no one will forget. Karen Mitchell arrived dressed like someone expecting a business award rather than a court hearing. Every detail of her appearance seemed carefully planned. Her expensive handbag rested neatly beside her chair. She checked her reflection in her phone screen twice before the hearing even began. Across the aisle sat Michael Bennett. He looked nothing like Karen. His navy blazer had been repaired at one elbow. His hands rested quietly on an old leather folder filled with neatly organized receipts, bank statements, and handwritten notes. His wedding ring showed years of wear, and his expression carried the exhaustion of someone who had spent months trying to clear his name. Judge Judy noticed every detail. Experienced judges understand something many people never learn. People telling the truth usually organize facts. People protecting lies often organize appearances. Michael wasn't suing because of a failed investment alone. On paper, the dispute seemed simple. He claimed Karen had convinced him to invest $50,000 into what she described as a guaranteed neighborhood redevelopment project. According to Karen, construction delays caused the losses, and every investor had knowingly accepted the risks. Karen insisted Michael simply regretted a bad business decision. But Michael told a different story. He claimed Karen had personally guaranteed the money would remain protected in a secured escrow account until construction officially began. The funds disappeared. The project never broke ground. Karen insisted none of it was her responsibility. At first glance, it sounded like a routine civil dispute. But Judge Judy had already noticed something strange inside the financial records. One transfer, one date, one account number. Those three details refused to fit Karen's version of events. Truth doesn't always arrive dramatically. Sometimes it hides inside ordinary numbers, waiting for someone patient enough to notice them. Karen leaned back with complete confidence. "This whole lawsuit is ridiculous," she said loudly. "He's embarrassed because he made a bad investment." Michael never interrupted. He simply placed one folded receipt on top of his folder. Judge Judy looked at it without picking it up. She had already seen it during her review. The receipt contained a handwritten promise signed by Karen herself. Not a contract, not a legal guarantee, just one short sentence written beneath her signature: "Your money stays protected until construction begins." Karen's attorney immediately spoke. "Your Honor, handwritten notes aren't necessarily binding." Judge Judy nodded slightly. "I agree." Karen smiled, "but they can reveal intent." Karen's smile faded, only slightly, Judge Judy noticed. Bodies confess before mouths do. Karen crossed her arms. I already explained everything. Judge Judy remained perfectly calm. You've explained many things. She paused. The question is whether you've explained them truthfully. The courtroom fell silent once again. Karen glanced toward her attorney. He didn't look back. Judge Judy rested her hand on the sealed brown evidence envelope. Inside was a financial ledger no one outside the court had seen. And buried within that ledger was a transaction that would completely change the meaning of Karen's insulting words and determine whether she would walk out of the courtroom owing Michael Bennett every dollar of the $50. Zero he had trusted her with. Judge Judy never reached for the brown evidence envelope. Not yet. Karen kept glancing at it anyway. That alone told the experienced judge more than any rehearsed statement ever could. People carrying the truth usually worry about being heard. People carrying a lie worry about what someone else already knows. Karen folded her arms and leaned back again, trying to recover the confidence she'd displayed only moments earlier. This isn't complicated, she said. Mr. Bennett invested in a business opportunity. Business opportunities involve risk. Judge Judy didn't disagree. They often do, Karen smiled. But, Judge Judy continued, escrow accounts are not supposed to involve disappearing money. The smile vanished almost instantly. Across the courtroom, Michael Bennett quietly lowered his eyes. He had spent nearly 18 months trying to explain that exact sentence to banks, attorneys, and former friends who believed he'd simply made a foolish financial decision. To understand why this lawsuit mattered, you first have to understand the man sitting quietly across from Karen. Michael Bennett wasn't a professional investor. He wasn't a wealthy developer. He had spent 32 years operating a small family-owned plumbing company started by his late father. Every invoice was handwritten. Every customer knew him by name. He believed that if you shook someone's hand, your word still meant something. When retirement finally came into view, Michael sold part of the business. The $50,000 he received wasn't extra money. It represented decades of early mornings, missed holidays, aching knees, and countless weekends spent repairing broken pipes while everyone else stayed home with their families. That money wasn't just savings. It was his future. Rebecca, no. Michael corrected himself quietly inside his own thoughts as he glanced toward the documents. There had been so many months of accusations and paperwork that even simple moments now felt confusing. Judge Judy noticed the hesitation. Real stress doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it appears as a person second-guessing their own memories because they've spent too long defending themselves. Michael opened the old leather folder resting in front of him. Inside were neatly labeled bank statements, copies of emails, canceled checks, a folded Christmas card from his grandchildren. Judge Judy noticed the card immediately. You keep that inside your evidence? Michael smiled sadly. I promised them I'd finally have time to travel after I retired. His voice grew quieter. That investment was supposed to pay for those trips. The courtroom remained silent. Karen sighed dramatically. This is exactly what he's been doing from the beginning. Judge Judy looked up. What do you mean? Trying to make everyone feel sorry for him. Michael didn't respond. He simply returned the Christmas card to the folder. Experienced judges recognize that tactic immediately. When someone cannot defeat the facts, they often try to attack the person presenting them. It wasn't a defense. It was an attempt to replace evidence with character assassination. Judge Judy calmly turned another page in the court file. Mr. Bennett, before transferring the funds, what did Mrs. Mitchell specifically tell you? Michael reached into the folder and carefully unfolded a single sheet of paper. It wasn't a formal contract. It wasn't even typed. It was a page from Karen's own presentation packet. Across the top in bold letters were 5 words. Your investment stays protected. Karen immediately interrupted. Marketing language isn't a guarantee. Judge Judy nodded. Perhaps not. She paused. But words still matter. Michael continued. She personally circled those words during our meeting. He pointed toward a small blue ink circle on the page. And she told me nothing happens to your money until construction officially starts. Karen shook her head. I don't remember saying that. Judge Judy looked directly at her. You don't remember? She glanced down at another document. Or you wish you hadn't? The question lingered in the air. Karen didn't answer instead. She looked toward her attorney again. He wasn't writing anymore. He was carefully reviewing documents he'd apparently never seen before. That worried Karen more than anything Judge Judy had said. The narrator observed quietly, "A courtroom has a pulse." That morning, everyone felt it change. Judge Judy rested one hand on the sealed brown envelope once more. I've listened carefully to both sides. She looked at Michael. I understand what you were promised. Then she turned toward Karen. And I believe we're about to discover exactly what happened after that promise was made. Karen swallowed. For the first time since walking into court, she wasn't looking at Judge Judy. She was staring at the unopened evidence envelope because somewhere inside it was a financial record tied to one transfer, one date, and one account that Karen desperately hoped the courtroom would never see. The courtroom felt smaller with every passing second. Karen Mitchell still sat upright, but the confidence that had fueled her earlier sarcasm was beginning to fade. Her crossed arms had slowly unfolded. Her foot tapped against the floor in an uneven rhythm she didn't seem to notice. Judge Judy noticed. She always noticed. People who believe they're winning rarely watch their own body language. People who know they're losing often can't stop it from betraying them. Judge Judy finally slid the sealed brown envelope toward the center of the bench. She still didn't open it. Karen's attorney leaned toward his client. Karen, he whispered, is there anything about these financial records I need to know before the judge reviews them? Karen shook her head immediately. No, it came too quickly. The attorney studied her for several seconds before sitting back down. He wasn't convinced, the narrator quietly observed. Experienced lawyers hear hesitation the same way experienced judges see it. Judge Judy opened the court file instead of the envelope. Mrs. Mitchell, she began, I'd like to understand your company a little better. Karen relaxed slightly. This is simple. I hope so. Karen smiled again. I own Mitchell Urban Development Consulting. And how long has the company existed? 7 years. And you've managed investment projects before? Several. Judge Judy nodded. So handling investor funds wasn't new to you? Correct. Karen answered confidently. Finally, a line of questioning she expected. Judge Judy looked down at her notes. You've testified that Mr. Bennett's $50,000 remained protected until construction delays forced changes. Exactly. And you also testified the funds stayed inside the escrow account. Karen answered without hesitation. Yes. Judge Judy looked over her glasses. You're certain? Karen met her eyes. Absolutely. Michael Bennett quietly closed his folder. He had stopped looking nervous. Not because he knew exactly what was coming, because he trusted Judge Judy had already seen something he hadn't. Sometimes victims stop fearing the truth long before everyone else sees it. Judge Judy turned another page. When construction was postponed, she paused, who authorized movement of investor funds? Karen answered almost instantly. No one. The courtroom remained silent. Judge Judy asked again. So no transfers occurred, correct? No withdrawals? No relocations? Karen shook her head confidently. None. Judge Judy folded her hands. The answer had come too easily. People rehearsing lies often love simple questions. They believe short answers leave fewer places to make mistakes. But the shortest answers sometimes create the biggest traps. Judge Judy looked toward Michael. Mr. Bennett, did you ever receive a notice that your escrow account had changed? No, Your Honor. Did you authorize any transfer? No, Karen interrupted, because there wasn't one. Judge Judy slowly turned toward her. You seem remarkably confident. Karen shrugged, because I'm telling the truth. The gallery remained perfectly still. Judge Judy reached toward the brown envelope. This time, she opened it. Inside rested a certified financial ledger, along with several color-coded bank records. Karen's attorney leaned forward immediately. His expression changed the instant he recognized the bank's certification seal. He quietly whispered, "Where did this come from?" Judge Judy answered calmly, "Subpoenaed records." Karen's face lost color. She hadn't expected that. Judge Judy removed the first page. The court obtained these directly from the financial institution. Karen stared at the document without blinking. Judge Judy continued. Unlike summaries prepared by either party, she placed the ledger flat on the bench. Banks tend to keep excellent records. The courtroom remained completely silent. Judge Judy traced one line with her finger. "Mrs. Mitchell," Karen swallowed. "Can you explain why $50,000 left the escrow account?" She paused. 3 days before the construction permit was even approved. Karen froze. Her attorney slowly turned toward her. He hadn't seen this document before. His eyes widened as he scanned the ledger. Then he noticed something even worse. The destination account. It wasn't a construction vendor. It wasn't a city permit office. It wasn't an escrow holding account. It was a personal checking account. Karen's personal checking account. The attorney slowly lowered the papers. His voice barely rose above a whisper. "Karen." She refused to look at him. Judge Judy calmly folded her hands once again. The courtroom hadn't yet heard Karen's explanation, but everyone in the room already understood one thing. The next answer would determine whether this was merely a failed investment or something far more deliberate. Karen opened her mouth to speak. Judge Judy waited. Because sometimes the most revealing moment in a courtroom isn't the evidence, it's the silence just before someone tries to explain it away. Karen stared at the certified bank ledger, as though refusing to blink might somehow change the numbers printed across the page. It didn't. Numbers have no loyalty. They simply tell the story they were created to record. Judge Judy didn't rush to speak. She allowed the silence to settle over the courtroom, giving everyone, including Karen, the opportunity to absorb what was sitting in plain sight: a single transfer, $50,000, escrow account. Destination: Karen Mitchell, personal checking, debt. 3 days before the city had even issued the first construction permit, Karen's attorney slowly removed his glasses. His face had turned noticeably pale. "Karen," he whispered, "I asked you if there was anything I needed to know." Karen swallowed hard. I can explain." Judge Judy folded her hands. "I'm listening." Karen drew a deep breath. It wasn't theft. No one interrupted. The money was only moved temporarily. Judge Judy tilted her head slightly. "Temporarily." Karen nodded eagerly. "Yes." "For what purpose?" Karen hesitated. "My accountant suggested it." "Your accountant." "Yes." Judge Judy made a brief note. "What is your accountant's name?" Karen froze. The hesitation lasted barely 2 seconds, but it felt much longer. Finally, she answered. "Brian." Judge Judy looked up. "Brian who?" Karen blinked. I'd have to check." The courtroom remained silent. Experienced judges recognized that genuine memories usually come with details. Invented ones often stop at first names. Karen's attorney quietly lowered his head. He knew exactly what had just happened. Judge Judy turned another page in the certified records. The bank didn't merely provide transaction history. She lifted another document. They also provided authorization records. Karen's breathing became noticeably faster. The narrator spoke softly. "People often prepare themselves for documents. They rarely prepare themselves for signatures." Judge Judy placed the authorization form beneath the courtroom camera. The image immediately appeared on the monitor. There was only one signature authorizing the transfer: Karen Mitchell. No accountant, no second approval, no escrow administrator. Only Karen. The courtroom gallery collectively exhaled. Michael Bennett looked down at the table, not because he wanted to avoid the evidence, because he had spent nearly 2 years wondering whether he had somehow missed something. Now he knew he hadn't. Judge Judy looked directly at Karen. You testified that no funds ever left the escrow account. Karen remained silent. You also testified that no one authorized a transfer. Silence. And this document shows you personally authorized a $50,000 transfer into your own account. Karen finally spoke. I intended to put it back. Judge Judy didn't react. When? Karen searched for an answer. After the permits came through, Judge Judy calmly picked up another certified page. The permits were denied 6 weeks later. Karen looked down. So, Judge Judy continued, when exactly were you planning to return the money? Karen's mouth opened. No words came. The silence became almost unbearable. The bailiff shifted his weight. A reporter in the gallery quietly stopped typing. Even Karen's attorney no longer looked surprised. He looked defeated. Judge Judy leaned back slightly. Bodies confess before mouths do. She let the words settle before continuing. Mrs. Mitchell, you've spent this entire hearing asking the court to believe this was an unfortunate investment. Karen stared at the floor. But investments lose value because of markets. Judge Judy paused. They don't disappear because someone quietly transfers them into a personal checking account. The sentence landed like a hammer. Karen's shoulders slumped. For the first time all day, she looked directly at Michael. I'm sorry. Michael didn't answer. Apologies offered after evidence appears rarely sound the same as apologies offered before it. Judge Judy reached beneath the remaining documents inside the envelope. There is one final exhibit. Karen closed her eyes. Her attorney whispered, Please tell me that's everything. Judge Judy looked toward the court technician. It isn't. She handed over a single printed email recovered during discovery. This message was sent the morning after the transfer. The technician scanned the page onto the courtroom monitor. A short email appeared. From Karen Mitchell to herself subject, asterisk reminder. The body contained only one sentence, move Bennett money before anyone asks about escrow. The courtroom froze. Karen covered her face. Her attorney slowly pushed his chair back from the defense table. He didn't say another word. Judge Judy folded her hands once more. The evidence was complete. Now only one thing remained, the verdict. The courtroom fell into absolute silence. The email remained on the monitor for several long seconds. No one spoke. No one moved. The single sentence glowed against the white screen like it had been waiting months to be seen. Move Bennett money before anyone asks about escrow. Judge Judy never looked at the screen again. She looked only at Karen. People often believe their biggest mistake is getting caught. Experienced judges know the biggest mistake usually happens much earlier. The moment someone convinces themselves they'll never have to answer for what they've done. Karen slowly lowered her hands from her face. Her confidence was gone. Her posture had collapsed. The woman who had walked into court mocking Judge Judy's age now struggled to meet the judge's eyes for more than a second. Her attorney quietly stood. Your Honor. Judge Judy nodded. You may speak. The attorney took a deep breath. Based on the evidence presented today, I can no longer argue that my client's testimony was accurate. The words landed like another blow. Karen turned toward him in disbelief. What are you doing? He answered softly. I'm doing what I should have been able to do from the beginning. He glanced toward the monitor. If I had known these records existed, my advice would have been very different. The narrator observed quietly. When even your own attorney stops defending your story, the courtroom already knows where the truth lives. Judge Judy reached for the certified financial records once more. Mr. Bennett. Michael looked up. When you transferred your $50,000, yes, Your Honor, what did Mrs. Mitchell tell you would happen if the project was delayed? Michael reached into his old leather folder and unfolded the handwritten note bearing Karen's signature. He read it aloud. Your money stays protected until construction begins. Judge Judy held up the certified bank ledger beside it. The evidence says otherwise. She placed both documents side by side. One contained a promise. The other documented its betrayal. Truth does not always arrive loudly. Sometimes it arrives folded inside two pieces of paper that refuse to agree with each other. Karen's voice trembled. I was going to replace it. Judge Judy remained composed. With what funds? Karen hesitated. The project would have recovered. The project never received its permit. Karen had no answer, Judge Judy continued. And according to these bank records, she turned another page. Within 48 hours of receiving Mr. Bennett's money, you paid off personal credit card balances, purchased a luxury SUV lease, and transferred additional funds into your personal savings account. The courtroom reacted with a collective gasp. Michael closed his eyes. It wasn't anger, it was relief. Months of uncertainty suddenly made sense. He hadn't made a foolish investment. He had trusted the wrong person. Judge Judy looked directly at Karen. This wasn't a temporary bookkeeping adjustment. She paused. This was personal spending. Karen quietly began to cry, not dramatic sobs, just silent tears. Judge Judy watched carefully. Real remorse accepts responsibility. Fear focuses on consequences. Mrs. Mitchell, she asked calmly, are you apologizing because Mr. Bennett was harmed? She paused. Or because the evidence prevented you from denying it? Karen couldn't answer. The silence answered for her. The gallery understood it immediately. So did Judge Judy. She closed the evidence file. The court has heard everything it needs. Karen's attorney slowly placed his legal pad inside his briefcase. He knew there would be no recovering from this. Michael carefully placed the handwritten promise back inside his old leather folder, the same folder he had carried into every meeting, every attorney's office, and finally into this courtroom. Judge Judy rested both hands on the bench. The evidence had completed its work, the promises, the bank transfers, the authorization form, the email. Every piece fit together like parts of a puzzle that Karen had believed no one would ever finish. Now only one question remained. What consequence would Judge Judy impose for a lie that had cost an honest man not just $50, but months of sleepless nights, damaged trust, and the retirement he had spent a lifetime earning? The courtroom waited as Judge Judy prepared to deliver the final judgment. Judge Judy looked across the courtroom one final time. The room was silent, not the uneasy silence that had followed Karen's disrespectful remark at the beginning of the hearing. This silence was different. It was the silence that follows undeniable truth. Karen Mitchell sat motionless at the defense table. The confidence that had once filled every answer had completely disappeared. Her expensive handbag rested untouched beside her chair, forgotten. Across the aisle, Michael Bennett quietly held the old leather folder that had traveled with him through nearly 2 years of unanswered questions. Judge Judy folded her hands. When people appear in this courtroom, she began calmly, they're entitled to defend themselves. She paused. They're entitled to disagree with accusations. Another pause. But they are not entitled to promise one thing, secretly do another, and then insult the court when those actions are questioned. Every word echoed through the courtroom. Karen lowered her head. Judge Judy continued. The evidence established that Mr. Bennett's funds were represented as protected. She lifted the handwritten note. The evidence further established that those funds were transferred into Mrs. Mitchell's personal account. She held up the certified bank ledger. And finally, she glanced toward the courtroom monitor. The defendant's own email demonstrated knowledge of that transfer before any questions were raised. There was nothing left to debate. Karen's attorney quietly stood. Your Honor. Judge Judy acknowledged him with a nod. My client wishes to apologize. Judge Judy looked at Karen. You may. Karen slowly stood. Her voice shook. Mr. Bennett, she stopped for several seconds before continuing. I'm sorry, Michael looked at her quietly. I trusted you. The simple sentence carried more emotion than anything else spoken that day. Karen nodded through tears. I know. Judge Judy waited. She had heard many apologies over the years. Some were sincere. Others simply arrived after every excuse had failed. She turned back toward Karen. Mrs. Mitchell, Karen looked up. If these financial records had never been subpoenaed, Judge Judy paused. Would you have ever returned his money? Karen stared at the floor. Several long seconds passed. Finally, no. The answer was barely audible, but every person inside the courtroom heard it. The gallery fell completely still. Michael closed his eyes for a brief moment. It wasn't satisfaction. It was closure. The uncertainty that had haunted him for months had finally been replaced by honesty. Judge Judy reached for her written decision. The court finds in favor of the plaintiff. Karen remained standing. Judgment is entered against Mrs. Mitchell in the amount of $50,000, together with all allowable court costs. Karen quietly closed her eyes. Judge Judy wasn't finished. The court further finds that the defendant knowingly provided false testimony concerning the handling of escrow funds. She carefully organized the evidence before continuing, because the certified financial records and related documents raise issues extending beyond today's civil dispute. Copies of the admitted exhibits may be referred to the appropriate authorities for whatever review they consider appropriate. Karen's attorney slowly lowered his head. He understood that the financial judgment might be only the beginning of Karen's problems. Judge Judy looked directly at Karen one last time. You began this hearing by telling me to mind my menopause. The courtroom became perfectly silent. You should have spent less time worrying about my age, she paused, and more time worrying about your bank records. No one spoke, no one moved. The sentence landed harder than any raised voice ever could. The bailiff announced that the matter was concluded. Karen quietly gathered her belongings without looking at anyone. The same reporters waiting outside the courtroom, who had expected another routine civil dispute, now rushed to report a very different story. Within days, Michael Bennett recovered the judgment awarded by the court through the legal process available to him. His retirement plans were delayed, but not destroyed. Months later, he finally took the trip he had promised his grandchildren, sending Judge Judy's staff a postcard with a handwritten note that read, "Thank you for reminding me that truth sometimes takes time, but it's worth waiting for." Back at the courthouse, Judge Judy moved on to the next case. She treated it with the same patience, the same attention to detail, and the same belief she had carried throughout her career. People can rehearse stories. They can polish appearances. They can even insult the person asking the questions. But facts remain patient. Bank records remember. Signatures endure. And truth has a way of arriving precisely when arrogance believes it never will. If you enjoyed this courtroom story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more unforgettable courtroom dramas. And tell us in the comments, at what moment did you realize Karen's case had completely fallen apart?